Welcome back to Sunday Vibes, one and all. As you can see, we're in a brand new pub slash sports bar, really. This is Clubhouse 5, just off of Leicester Square. How good does this place look?
Class.
It's literally just opened, so we're like one of the first people in here. We must be some of the first shooters in here.
We are. In fact, I have knowledge that we are the first people to have shot here.
Really?
Indeed.
I mean, it's a great location. Loads of screens. We're going to be watching the Champions League here next week, aren't we?
We are indeed. Yeah. We're going to be here next Wednesday for Man City versus Real Madrid. You guys can come say hello.
Yeah, come
if
down.
You want to.
Come down. We'll put a link in the description below. So if you want to come down and book and watch it with us, you will be milling around, then you can welcome to do that. Just click the link in the description below. And we fully expect Man City to smoke Real Madrid on the night. So
you said that last time, and they ended up being not too bad.
Exactly. Well, I hope everybody at home's hangovers are going well on this beautiful Sunday. Boys, how are you?
I'm not too bad, mate. I'm not too bad. I think I say that every single Sunday Vibes intro.
That's good.
It is consistency. Yeah, I'm well. How are you, Pat? You had a couple of days off?
Yeah, I had a couple of days off, and now I've been arranging my daughter's second birthday party. So,
have you? What's the plan?
As everyone is watching this, I will be corralling a bunch of kids into like this ballet class that's being put on for them. Like, there are like bubbles and stuff.
Oh,
I would if she asked me to. I'm at that point of fatherhood where, like, if she tells me, she's like, "Papa, do it," then I do it.
Okay. Well, I won't be doing anything like that on the weekend. I'll probably be recovering from Saturday as well, like many other watchers at home. Anyway, we will be also releasing an episode of Monday Vibes tomorrow. You guys seem to really enjoy that on Monday, so we'll be doing that again this week. So make sure you tune in tomorrow. Lots of plugs going on. Let's get straight into it, shall we? No more messing about. Today we're talking about Wonderkids you could potentially sign this coming summer. How this format is going to work. Me and Jalab have both got 3 Wonderkids each. The term Wonderkids is pretty loose, so we've gone 22 and under. Pat is then going to attempt to place that player at a club that he thinks they would be a nice fit at. Then we'll have a little bit of debate about whether or not we agree. Jalab, do you want to go first? Do you want to kick us off? Who's your first Wonder Kid?
Well, let's kick it off because I am the #1 fan of him. I've made the fan club. I've said it many a times. It is Evan Ferguson.
How much do you want to speak about this one?
This
small
guy
child
is so child. Well. You say small,
yeah.
Considering he's 18 years old and 6 foot.
This is why you like him
because
he's a giant. He's a
like
giant teenage boy.
He's not finished. He's not finished growing, mate. That's for sure. The guy's incredible. Like, he really, really is. For his age, to be doing what he's doing in the Premier League consistently as well now, I think speaks volumes. I mean, for ages, whenever we've spoken about Brighton, and this obviously was under Graham Potter as well, we spoke about how the one thing they always kind of missed out was a goal scorer or a striker, somebody to kind of put the ball in the back of the net. Neil Maupay didn't quite work out. They were more than happy to kind of sell him on. And I think that's because they thought they had a superstar in Evan Ferguson. I mean, his story in general and how they got him was really impressive.
Where did he come from? Bohemians, was it?
They went and got him obviously out of Ireland, but they also went and got him against the likes of Manchester United, Chelsea. Other clubs were looking in for this guy too. He wasn't somebody that was kind of not scouted. Every club was looking at him. I mean, remember as well, Chelsea playing a pre-season, I think in Frank Lampard's second season, and they played in Ireland. They played against him up top, which was like...
He must have been about 12.
Yeah, no, he was like very much, very, very young, and he was one of the guys that were playing in that game. And then obviously he's gone into Brighton, and he didn't start straight away. They did kind of take a little bit of time, more of a substitute appearances, but very, very quickly he got adapted to the Premier League. And I remember specifically one game against Liverpool, he was super, super impressive. And I think one of the things for me that I think are so impressive about him is how... And the Premier League, I think a lot of people come and they say how physically strong it is and physically demanding it is. And when he came in, I remember the game against Arsenal, Saliba, one of the Premier League's best centre-backs this season, for one of the goals, he absolutely physically dominates him. He's all over him.
He is a big unit for an 18-year-old.
But also, for someone that is so big, he's got a great touch. A lot of his like build-up play are through little flicks or one-touch passes, one-touch movements. He does so fantastically well at that. And look, I'm not saying, because I've said it before, I'm not saying he's going to reach this level, but I do see kind of elements of Harry Kane towards the way he plays. He isn't afraid to get onto the ball as well and pass it.
Wow, it's a big call. I've seen this alignment happen.
Exactly.
I'm not totally convinced.
I don't think he'll maybe be the exceptional passer that Harry Kane can be.
So he does profiles above average, like above average number of passes, above average completion. Like the fact that he can go into the passing setup of one of the league's best possession sides and he doesn't look out of place at 18 is a pretty good indicator that he's going to be good.
Yeah, I mean, if he ever gets to the level of Harry Kane where he's picking up the ball and spraying a 60-yard perfect through ball, we'll see, and that does remain to be seen. But I think the idea as well that this guy can be developed into kind of and get better,
Yeah.
and into a striker that you want under a good manager. Like, that's why I think if you're Manchester United, if you're any of these clubs that are looking at a striker mould, maybe it's a little bit early for a move like a Manchester United where you're going to become the starting striker. But if you're one of these clubs, it's understandable why he's on your radar, why he's one of the guys that you're after. I mean, he is a Manchester United fan.
Massive
as well.
Man United fan. I've seen the quotes.
Indeed. The only thing that is going to be tough for any club is he's just signed a new deal, a long-term deal as well. Obviously, partially that as well was to probably get him on a wage, increase his wage, because before that he probably wasn't on anything too excessive. So it will cost, like pretty much any Brighton signing, a decent chunk of change to try and get him. But overall, like, the guy to have 4 goals in 7 Premier League starts, it is mega. Like, he was 17 when the Premier League season started this year, and he doesn't
crazy,
the idea that he's going to be like 19 next season and probably starting a lot more games for Brighton up top. I think he's going to be, he's just a freak of nature. He's so good.
I think he's also fortunate that, like, De Zerbi's come in at the right time for him.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like De Zerbi really is willing to put an incredible amount of faith in young players. I mean, you've seen even like Enciso coming through recently over the last month or so.
Buonanotte.
Yeah, Buonanotte, like to a level, and obviously the midfield duo of McAllister just turned 24, Moises Caicedo still only 21. Like, he has no issue with playing players that are super young if they're good enough to start in that side.
And obviously he's already been capped by Ireland. Like, this is a guy who's been given so much experience so quickly and been very good with it. Like, been able, like a duck to water. He's taken it in his stride and looked super successful. Again, another team that was after him when he was moving to England was Liverpool. And you can understand that he's being scouted by so many of these top clubs, and he's been looked at for a long time as well. He's not been this guy that's kind of blown up. He has been scouted by a lot of these clubs for a while. Pat, where are we sending him?
I think this is a difficult one because, like, the clubs who are linked with him, some of them I wouldn't really wish on my worst enemy. Like, I would not send an 18-year-old striker to Manchester United for a big fee.
Why?
Because it's a horrible.
But United are desperate for a number 9.
Yeah, but you're going to come in with expectation. Doesn't matter how young you are. They're going to have to spend, 50 mil on him?
Minimum, I would think, given he signed that contract.
And he's going to come in with the expectation that he's a starting striker for Manchester United. And there's no guarantee that he will be. Like, let's face it, Brighton are much better at getting chances for their number 9s than Man United are right now. Man United have also got a winger whose primary job is goal scoring in Rashford, whereas the wingers at Brighton they're much more kind of suited to an all-round game where they can goal score, but they can create too. So I think that's quite a difficult situation. Plus, I just sort of think, if you think you won't be able to get him in a few years' time, like say we were talking about like Spurs or someone, I'd understand why you'd go for him early for big money, because you'd say, well, maybe we can't get him in a few years. But from Man United's point of view, they can let Evan Ferguson get another 3 years of Premier League football and probably get him for a similar price, or maybe even less as his contract runs down. Getting him now, he's barely proven, and it just seems like a little bit of a risk.
It's a bit early, isn't it?
I want to see him get another season at Brighton. That's the issue. I do worry that he'd go to another side. He'd maybe be out of form, and United are probably going to be in a race for top 4 next season. Because I assume that Liverpool are going to strengthen, Chelsea are going to strengthen, a bunch of teams around are going to strengthen. Arsenal and City will still be there. If he has a bad run of form, United will drop him because they'll need to be better than that. Yeah. Brighton won't. Brighton will stick with him.
What about a side like Borussia Dortmund, who have classically taken young players, from England. Most of the time they've been from academies, i.e. Manchester City, where there's not going to be a pathway through to the first team. You think of Jadon Sancho classically. Jude Bellingham, they took from Birmingham, were willing to give him plenty of minutes. With Seb Haller not getting any younger either. Like, is that an option? A club like Borussia Dortmund?
Expensive. I think it'll be too expensive.
Yeah,
like, honestly, Brighton have more financial strength than Borussia Dortmund right now. I actually think Brighton are better than Borussia Dortmund as well. Like,
do you?
Quite clearly. Yeah, I think Brighton are one of the 10 best sides in Europe.
That's some claim, mate. I mean, he would be playing Champions League football at Borussia Dortmund. They're potentially winning the Bundesliga this season.
But I don't think they're Bayern Munich. But I don't think they're a better side. Like, I can see the appeal of that, but I just don't think they pay the money to get him out.
No, but I think in terms of development in his career,
he's not homegrown as well, right?
I don't think he is.
No, he can't be.
No, because
he hasn't been there for long enough. You have to be there for 3 years before you're 18.
Yeah,
so.
I don't think he's homegrown. But nevertheless, I kind of agree with you, mate. I'm not going to lie. I think Brighton is the perfect place to develop. I'm saying if he had to get a move and something went wrong at Brighton, I think Borussia Dortmund would be a nice location.
No, it definitely would. I think that's a better fit than United, or a post Kane Spurs would be interesting just to see whether he can do the stuff you were talking about, whether he can do that Kane stuff. Because I would say a lot of Kane's game has been fixing issues with Spurs that under other circumstances he would. If he'd gone to Man City, we wouldn't see him dropping deep and spraying 60-yard passes.
No, I know.
Yeah, very cheap. But again, the same thing as well with like if he went to Spurs, like the idea of being the pressure of kind of the replacement for Harry Kane. A lot of pressure. I do think you guys are right. He is probably in his ideal place right now, because especially next season, if he can maybe double his starts. Like I said, he's got 7 right now. I expect him to have a lot more next season, especially considering he'll be looked at from the beginning of the season. If he can reach, 20 starts in the Premier League, that would be really, really impressive, and try and see how his development goes. And if he kind of continues in this same trajectory, then I'm sure we'll be talking, we could do this exact same video and mention his name as well next season.
I honestly think also like an interesting place would have been Bayern.
I was about to say that, but they did take Matthias Tell, didn't they? And
Sure,
you are
but
then
he's still-
competing
They've
with
just said they're
another-
keeping
He's still,
him as well.
yeah, he's still really young though. I mean, yeah, it would
probably
be
the same age as Ferguson.
I think if Ferguson were a little bit cheaper, then that's something that we could talk about, because they've got so many wide creative players, and they do just need like
A guy to stand there in the
a
middle.
massive guy in the middle. Like they're so clearly lacking. Like there's so many times where you watch them and they're looking for that guy and he's not there. So that'd be interesting. Chelsea, no, garbage.
So you're saying overall your pick is State Bro?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Boring. Really boring shout
Sorry,
from Jalab.
sorry.
Really boring shout from Jalab, I'm not going to
Brilliant.
lie. It sums him up quite nicely. I'm going
Wow.
to go into the midfield, where I think...
Really harsh, that.
I've got one
Yeah,
of those... Well, it's just boring, isn't it? We know Ferguson's amazing, in my opinion.
Well, I
And
hope
he's got
everyone
State Bro.
enjoyed the first 5 minutes of this show.
Yeah, I'm going to take Ugarte. And
Okay.
I don't know whether that's how you pronounce it. I'm not going to lie. It could be Ugarte.
Oh, great research, Jay.
Yeah, 'cause-
Bad research. We're off to a bad start. But he
Portuguese.
just about fits into the category of Wonderkid, I think, given that we have done 22 or under. He's just turned 22 as well, I think, fairly recently.
yeah,
So
it
he
fits.
just about fits in there.
Actually, he's Uruguayan, is he not?
He's Uruguayan.
So it is Ugarte.
Ugarte. Okay,
Yeah.
we're going Ugarte. Yeah, and he is like prime Uruguayan as well. He's like Mr. Uruguay. You know, like every Uruguayan midfielder I can think of. Like it's just like cracking into tackles, enjoys the physical battle. Even like Bentancur, like he just loves to get involved. Like, I love Ugarte, if we're going with that pronunciation.
You are.
And I think he is due a big move this coming summer. He's
Yeah.
been sensational for Sporting this season. You know, he's taken up the mantle because they've lost some big names in that midfield over the last couple of years. You think of the output Polinia was able to put together defensively. His numbers, even since coming to the Premier League, some of the best in Europe in that Fulham side. Mateus Nunes, since going to Wolves, they've lost a lot of output from him as well. Well, he's not been amazing. He's not ripped the world apart at Wolves, is he? But at Sporting was
Been below league
he
average.
was a high-level prospect at
Sure.
Sporting.
No, I agree.
He was really good there. And the way Ruben Amorim plays football, with that 3 at the back, at times you're looking like a 3-1-6, really, in their structure. And Ugarte is the one. He is the ultimate, like, ground eater. He's like N'Golo Kante, man. He's really like N'Golo Kante. His tackle
It's a
numbers are...
huge name to compare him to.
He's saying he's like him. He's not saying
I
he's
think-
as
I think-
good as him.
I'm not saying
No,
he's as
no,
good as
no,
him,
no,
but I
like
think he's a similar
stylistically.
profile. I think
Yeah,
he's a similar
I agree.
profile.
I
He's
agree.
an absolute ground
Even
eater.
going forward as well.
But he's
he's-
mobile like
He's
Kante, isn't he?
super mobile. His tackle numbers are off the scale. And not just domestically either, because I think a lot of people say, well, yeah, it's easy to put tackle numbers up in Sporting. But he's in a team that I think is the 6th highest percentage of possession across Europe, Sporting. And he's still putting up 6 tackles a game.
And they've had reasonable competition in the Europa League, you know, because they played Arsenal,
And
they
the
played
Champions
Juventus.
League. Highest amount of tackles in the Champions League
Yeah.
this season.
So
I think
he's played
second or
real
third
teams.
highest amount of tackles in the Europa League. He's probably only played 2 rounds. Like, he is a ground eater, a tackle machine, an interception monster, but he's also sensational under pressure. When the ball's played into him, he's not the best progressive passer. You're not going to ask him to split lines and get the ball and funnel it into your forwards, but he is sensational at carrying the ball and being able... You know how Kante kind of just bounces through a couple of people? That's exactly what Ugarte is going to give to your side. I personally think he's a really nice fit for anyone who needs a defensive midfielder this summer. At 21, 22, he's clearly the next guy out of Portugal that's going to be a big star. And he's got a £52 million buyout clause, which I think is a big thing because the Portuguese league has been rattled recently with players leaving and getting pilfered, but they've been going for big money. You think of Darwin Núñez, Enzo. Whereas Ugarte, because he's got the release clause, I I think is much more gettable. I mean, even Matheus Nunes went for a big fee to Wolves, didn't he? If you can get Ugarte for that £52 million, I think it's a really, really impressive pickup. And I'm going to throw a couple clubs at you.
Okay.
Heavily linked with Liverpool this week. Heavily linked. I think it's a fantastic fit. I think the way he operates at Sporting, in that sort of 3-1-6 role as the singular destroyer in there, is very similar to how when Jordan Henderson was filling in for fullbacks, Ugarte does that on the right-hand side.
Okay.
You know when you classically think of the best Trent, although he's been great recently in this new role, was when Jordan Henderson would fill in the right-back slot, he would go into that inverted or play a little bit higher on the wide. Because they've had Pedro Porro there, who plays basically as a right winger for Sporting, and you've seen him at Tottenham, he's much better going forward than going backwards. Nearly all of his defensive work was done by Ugarte. He would just slot in there, pick up all of the pieces, and I think that would really help Liverpool, having another ground-eating, dominating midfielder that can do that, because Fabinho's legs have probably gone, and Henderson's legs have certainly gone at this stage. So I think he's a great fit for them. Also think he's a great fit for Chelsea. I think he would play really nicely alongside Enzo. I think Enzo, personally, I think is being slightly misused as this sort of deep, like, lone six at times at Chelsea. I don't think Poch is going to use him there. I think he's slightly better resting the ball, moving the ball around the edge of the area. I think for Argentina, some of his best performances at the World Cup came when he was getting in around the box. And he's just not been allowed to do that really at Chelsea. So maybe a defensive midfielder unlocks Enzo.
I think when Enzo joined,
I
kind of thought at the time that we still needed a DM to kind of play alongside him massively.
Definitely.
And obviously with the kind of, I know Kante doesn't necessarily play DM, but with the revival of Kante over the past couple of game weeks, like we've kind of seen a nice kind of duo-ship form as well. And sometimes like there are times when I'm watching Kovacic and Enzo play together, and it's almost like Enzo wants to play in Kovacic's area. And obviously with the rumours that have kind of come out this week, it does seem like Kovacic could be on his way out.
Yeah, because he plays in the midfield too with Hidemasi Morita at Sporting, and Morita he's not like a defensive sort of style player, so all of that defensive work is really being done by Ugarte. But if you look at his sort of carries and successful take, he's an amazing dribbler. Like, he's putting up like 3 dribbles a game.
Wow.
Really like impressive numbers. So I think he's like prime, ready-made for the Premier League, given his age as well.
He was also linked to Spurs as well at one point.
But God, why, man? Spurs don't need another holding midfielder. Bissouma, Skip, Højbjerg, bloody like Sarr can play in there if he needs to. They don't need any more defensive midfielders, man. It's a joke. Get a creator if you're Spurs. Don't get Ugarte, and they won't get Ugarte because he's going to go to a club at a higher level than Spurs because they ain't going to be in the Champions League.
If Liverpool or Spurs are offering it to you, you're surely going to go to Liverpool, right?
Absolutely, no doubt.
What about Arsenal? Arsenal could
possibly have replacement.
Could possibly look into.
I think Arsenal will want a better passer.
Okay.
Like Ugarte is a fine passer, but he's not like a progressive passer. Yeah. He does need a guy next to him who's going to put out the volume that you need, the progressive pass volume. So from that point of view,
he's very simple.
I think Chelsea is actually the best shout here.
Wow.
I think Liverpool probably needs someone who's a little bit more of a passer as well.
He's not terrible though.
And who I know, but maybe also somebody who gives them a bit more formational versatility. You know, because I think there are times this season where it really would have helped them to flex into a back three.
But that's
maybe they could do that with Fabinho. Maybe Fabinho could play in the middle of a back three.
But with Ugarte plays in the back three now, he can flex.
But I also think that the question is, could you play Fabinho in a back three? Because if not, signing Ugarte means Fabinho is basically never coming back. Like, you're never really going to get value out of him again.
But I think they're close to accepting that, mate. Do you think Fabinho can do it at the top level anymore after watching this season?
I honestly don't know, but I mean, if Thiago had been fit, I don't think it would have been such a bad season. I just don't think it's the profile they're looking for. That's more the issue. Like, we've heard them talk about Nunes, we've heard them talk about Bellingham. Like, these are guys who are capable of putting out decent defensive output, but are really much more progressive. And I do think if you get Ugarte's a DM. He's a DM. He's always going to be a DM. He plays as a DM. I'm not saying he can't cover the wide areas, but he is a defensive midfielder. And I just don't think that that's something that Liverpool have been looking at.
What about Bayern Munich? Also linked there this week.
That's an interesting one. I don't see it.
I don't see it either. Does anything disrupt that partnership of Goretzka and Kimmich? Like, it feels like they've tried so many different people to disrupt that. They've tried some bits. They're going to try Lima coming in this summer. Like, does Ugarte go in there and disrupt? I don't think he does, man. Like,
and Lima actually, in lots of ways, profiles quite similarly. Like, I mean, I'd say he's a better passer and he's less maybe of a dribbler, but he's just a big defensive midfielder. Like, I mean, that is what Lima has traditionally been. I think Chelsea is the best shout here. I really do. I think a Conte-Enzo partnership is kind of your dream if Conte were 6 years younger. But because he now doesn't have the fitness and because he has lost a step and you've seen him play as much more of a passer than a runner like he used to be, I don't think you want that. I think you want Enzo doing the lion's share of that because he's been one of the best progressive passers in the Premier League since he came in. So I think having a guy next to him who can just snap into tackles, protect this back line, which is going to be gelling for some time to come, and essentially give the ball to Enzo or keep it simple. Because if you're playing, a back three or something, I don't really know. I guess it could be either under Pochettino, actually, if they get him over the... He played
he mixed
threes
it
and
up,
fours.
but generally 4-2-3-1.
But either way, he's going to have lots of passers around him. He's going to have probably a 10 in front of him. He's going to have Enzo to the side. He may have wing backs. So it's fine for him to keep it simple in that system. I think that works really well.
And also, obviously it does look like it is going to be Pochettino, being managed by someone who's been really, really good at managing young players and developing them is not a bad place to be.
Sure.
Okay, so Chelsea for
Chelsea for Ugarte.
Okay, I like it. Moving on to my second suggestion, Xavi Simons. Now, obviously,
we're
we've
cooking.
all
That's
kind
what I
of
like to hear.
Your boy.
We've all kind of heard about Xavi Simons for a long time. I remember when he's coming through at La Masia as well.
Yeah.
We always saw these videos of this kid that was quite small but with long, not afro locks, I guess. Whatever. I'm not going to get into his hair, but we all kind of saw about this
David
guy
Luiz
coming
trim.
through. David Luiz trim for sure. But he left La Masia in 2019 and joined PSG when he was just 16. And he cost them, or he was actually earning about €1 million a year as well at 16 years old, which is mightily impressive. Then, after a couple of years, he made his professional debut in 2021 before then moving to PSV last summer for free. However, PSG were quite smart in their thinking. They also put in a deal to get him back on a buyback clause for €12 million, which
so
is
cheap,
incredible. However, it can only be used up until 2024. So if it goes past 2024, that
so they can
buyback is
activate it
gone.
this summer.
They can
Yeah,
technically
I would
activate it
definitely
this
do it
summer
this summer.
and next summer.
Job done.
Now, this season, he's basically played midfield, but also when Gakpo left to join Liverpool in January, we've also seen him feature out on the left wing as well. I mean, since he's kind of gone back to his homeland of the Netherlands and playing the Eredivisie, he's just been ridiculous. I mean, he was at times the top goal scorer when he was playing in midfield. He's now currently the third highest goal scorer in the Eredivisie, behind by 1 goal. He's currently on 15, and he's
good output at first
got
season.
8 assists as well, which is really, really impressive. I mean, there are rumours that he's going to possibly be the player of the season as well. He's won the player of the month twice this campaign. He's just been for Van Nistelrooy, like, so reliant on him by doing everything. When I was watching, I've not watched an incredible amount of him, but when I was watching some of his highlights, like, he looks so slight. Yeah. He looks so slight, and I was almost thinking, I was like, is this guy like 5'7"?
Yeah.
But he's actually 5'10", which kind of surprised me.
And he's so young as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Size on, isn't it?
Exactly. But one of the things I actually thought was quite impressive is he's actually quite physical in midfield. He's more than happy to get the ball with a good guy on his back. He's got like a very, very low centre of gravity, so he can kind of dribble fantastically well.
He was a real problem for Arsenal.
I was going to say the same thing.
Real problem.
I remember thinking, Gakpo's the guy here. Like, I'm really excited to watch Gakpo. And it was just like, Gakpo looks crap compared to Xavi Simons. Like, he's obviously not, but like, this guy is just like tearing teams apart with his footwork.
Well, even in one of their most recent games against Ajax, he featured on the left wing and was just like man of the match. He was incredible. I mean, if you look at his FB ref, it is just green. Everything is just like solid green in every single department. I mean, in terms of where his future lies, I think it probably is more of a midfielder rather than a winger. I think so. I mean, I think that also allows you to kind of get his allow him to kind of receive the ball a lot more in midfield, and that's what you want him. You want him on the ball, and you want him dictating play. And when you're on the left, that doesn't necessarily happen as much. It will be interesting. I mean, whatever club he could go to, there's, I think, so many. I think he's ready for a move in the summer. I really do. I think he looks too good already for the Eredivisie and for PSV, and that's not to say obviously to slight it. but he just looks incredible. Like the guy should be playing in a top Champions League team. The way he's already dictating games at 20 years old is really, really impressive. And also, if PSV are smart, they're going to try and get more money than 12 million euros from PSG.
But
it's not
this
going to
is
work.
the issue, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Why don't PSG just buy him back and sell him on?
Yeah, quite possibly.
They may not be allowed to, because sometimes there are rules, right, on these buyback deals, because we've seen this happen in the past. But yeah, I mean, that does feel like what they do. But I think if PSG do buy him back, they should still sell him on.
Yeah.
I just don't think he's going to be right for them, or they're not going to give him.
I agree.
Minutes.
He's such a
especially because it might be Mourinho who's there next season. I'm not sure that I want to see that.
He's one that he looks like so much fun. On everything he's doing. Like he's also quite flary as well in terms, not like anger wise, but is in like
flary.
He's very his skills, or he's like always doing no look passes, or I don't know what it's called, where you take the ball from one foot onto the other to pass it back.
Yeah.
He's just like very, very confident with the way he's playing at the moment. It would be possibly interesting to see what would happen if, say, he was playing in a side where there is a lot more pressure. If you are playing for like a top 4 side in the Premier League, or if you're playing, not to say obviously that PSV there isn't pressure, but to be playing where you need to be getting Champions League football, where you've been bought for this huge fee and people are expecting lots of you, because obviously getting for someone for free, you don't have that price tag on your back. You don't have this idea of, okay, you've got to perform because we've spent 50 million on you. So it will be really, really interesting. But I do think he's ready for a move. Like, look, okay, if he spent another season at PSV, it's not the worst thing in the world. I'm sure he'd also improve dramatically as well. But the guy's ready. Like, he really is. He's super, super impressive.
How ready are we talking here? Because, like, I'm instinctively thinking, like, a couple of options. I don't know whether he's quite attacking enough to be an Nkunku replacement at Leipzig. Like, is he enough of a second striker, or does he want to play in that more reserved midfield role?
I mean, big shot numbers and huge XG numbers like this season. But yeah, I think you do want him out wide. But I wouldn't be surprised if they push Szoboszlai up. I think and they've obviously still got Olmo, they've still got Andre Silva. Like they've got lots of options.
Werner's basically running in behind for fun now, isn't he? Anyway,
I would like to see this guy in the Prem.
I'm going to suggest someone for you. What about Man City as a potential Bernardo Silva replacement?
Goodness.
Okay.
Goodness.
Okay, you've surprised me.
Well, we've seen
they say this every summer.
I know, and
then Barca never give them enough money. Barca just looking for free signings.
I know. But equally, bear in mind we're talking about a winger who was converted into a midfielder who's extremely hard-working, puts up incredible dribble numbers. If he's playing slightly further forward, is a bit of a a shot dog. Like I think it's not the worst shout, but I don't think he would get enough minutes for his own development.
No,
and I think throughout his career, Xavi Simons has kind of proved that he's willing to dog off big teams in favour of minutes. Like he left Barcelona's academy and went to PSG, that he thought he was going to get minutes there. He left PSG to go to PSV. Who's the next PS? Is there another PS in Europe football? Because we've gone PSG to PSV to PS.
No.
Not going to work out. Not going to work out.
What do we think about Spurs? Because I think Spurs.
I want him playing more fun football.
No, but I think
get a defensive manager.
But I think
under Nagelsmann.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, different levels if it's Nagelsmann.
And I think they are looking at a project manager, right? Like they're looking at a young guy who's going to build towards something interesting with them. Formationally, they're set up for a kind of maybe a 3-4-3, which I think he'd fit quite nicely into on one of the sides. But crucially, if Son comes back next year and he's good, I still think there's a home for Xavi Simons in the midfield. You could play 4-3-3 with him as the most attacking in the midfield 3. You could play 4-2-3-1 with him as a 10. You could play him on the other flank if they are unable to make the Kulusevski thing permanent, because there's rumours about that at the moment. But if Son isn't good enough, if Son has really finally hit his decline, then Simons can come in and play on the left. Like I think he's clearly capable of doing it against top level opposition. Great body strength, great low center of gravity, fast, skillful. I think he would make Spurs a lot more interesting.
Imagine him and Kulusevski on the flanks.
Absolutely need this right now. Spurs have no spark. And I know the idea of if they let Kane go, what's going to happen? But they've had Kane for years and they've played boring football for ages. Since the Eriksen Alley days, they've been so dull to watch. They do need somebody who gets people on their feet. And I do think Simons
he would do that.
He does have kind of a star quality. I know that's like really wishy-washy thing to say.
No,
but when you watch him, when
you
watch a team with him playing, you watch him.
Yeah,
that's what I like about it.
He does have this kind of. It's almost like people going to PSV games and every single time that we're coming out talking about Xavi Simons and that one bit of skill he did or that one flare pass that he did. He really does have this kind of like idea of he is the star boy per se. Like he is so.
Well, I was reading some of the comments on. I think it might have been Mikey who suggested it actually on. Was it Continental Club with you talking about Wonderkids a few months ago or a few weeks ago? Was talking about Xavi Simons, and there was a PSV fan in the comments, and he was saying that he thinks he's the best player he's seen at the club, even better than Depay. Like Depay levels of excellent, and Depay was. I know that he has not been sensational recently, but in the Eredivisie was absolutely off the scale good. So I think he's a good suggestion to Spurs.
I like it. You know what? If Spurs get a Nagelsmann in, sure. If they get a defensive manager in, I'd be less keen. But if it's Nagelsmann and he could be playing this free-flowing attacking football, be fun, I'm more than happy.
And I think Simons will be happy to just let it run another year if he doesn't feel like the right opportunity is there. I think he'll say, "I'll give it another year." Isn't it? When you've seen Cody Gakpo get kind of raptured up to Liverpool, Cody Gakpo, it used to be that if you were in the Eredivisie, you would disappear to a mid-table Premier League club in January or go to Germany. Yeah. Now you can hope for a move to one of Europe's best sides. Yeah. So why sell yourself short? Why go to as much as I think there'd be an interesting home for him at Villa or Brighton or someone like that, just wait and you'll get a big move.
Yeah. Very quickly, do you think, obviously with the rumours of possibly Messi leaving, Neymar leaving, that actually maybe moving back to PSG could be an option as well for this summer?
Could be an option.
Yeah, I think it really depends who the next coach is going to be.
Yeah.
If it's going to be Jose, then no. Honestly, no.
Yeah.
But if it's going to be Nagelsmann, then yeah. It's going to be really dependent on who that next manager is, because it's not going to be Galtier. Let's be frank. Galtier is not going to be in a job there next summer, is he? So I think it depends on the manager. But I like Spurs.
I like it.
Right, okay, my next one. I think this is one of the hardest players to place, Pat, so this might be a difficult one for you.
Okay.
Is Jeremie Frimpong.
Okay.
Of course, the Bayer Leverkusen right back. But really, if we're honest with ourselves, right wing back. Now, under Xabi Alonso.
He's Dutch.
He is Dutch.
Like all good things.
But he's homegrown.
Okay.
9 years in Manchester City's academy before going to Celtic. Celtic sold him to Leverkusen.
Sure.
Now, I think it's important to note here as well that Leverkusen are going to ask for a slightly enhanced fee because Celtic take 30% of any profit of the deal, which is a big chunk. So, they sold him to Leverkusen for 11.3, I think. So let's say he moves for 50 and they're taking 30% of that.
Of the profit?
Of the profit.
So over
30,
the 11
they'll still be taking 30% of £40 million. It's a lot of money to Leverkusen to be losing. So you might have to pay an elevator fee just because of that. And he's under contract to 2025, so I don't think he's going to be totally easy to get out of there. And we are talking about maybe one of the most exciting, certainly right wing backs of his age in world football right now. What a dribble monster. He's an absolute machine in 1v1s. You are not going to beat him. He is very sort of Tariq Lamptey, very short, 5'7", low centre of gravity, but technically better than Tariq Lamptey. I think it's really hard to get the ball off him. He's got a lovely partnership with Moussa Diaby on that right wing, and I think that a lot of top clubs will be looking at that thinking, it's hard to find super attacking right backs right now. I think Pedro Porro's come to the Premier League, has struggled at times because he's so attacking. Would Frimpong struggle in the Premier League as well because he's so attacking? But I think it's 19 goal involvements so far this season in all competitions, which is a scary number for a fullback. I think there's only one other fullback in Europe's top 5 leagues that has put up over 5 goals and assists in domestic league play, and I think that's DeMarco.
Okay, yeah, that would make sense.
At Inter Milan, and obviously Frimpong is the other one. But he's just so good at carrying the ball. We're talking record dribbling numbers in the Bundesliga. His success rate is frighteningly good. But the issue is how he's been very heavily linked with Manchester United. Very heavily linked. I think Sport Bild said that Man United are in advanced talks for a €50 million deal. United don't play a 3 at the back. I think his best football this season has come under Xabi Alonso in a 3-back system where he's been an advanced wing-back. And centre-backs have been coming across to cover him in that right-back slot. Is he ever going to be a right-back?
And it's going to expose Varane a lot more.
Oh, my God.
And I would say that Varane has finally had a good season for Man United, having had a bit more protection around him.
Yeah, and his attacking output is massive. Expected goals, expected assists, shot creating actions, take-ons. We're talking about an elite fullback. Defensively, we're not. Which signals to me very much that his future lies potentially even as a right winger more than a right back.
He's the opposite of Wan-Bissaka, essentially.
He's literally, if you could...
He's doing a Gareth Bale thing at the moment.
He's doing a very... Yeah, no, he is.
yeah,
He's actually doing it. That's a great shout. He's doing a Gareth Bale right now, where, of course, we saw Gareth Bale break through as a left back, move to a left wing back, and then immediately became a left winger. Like, we are seeing that from Frimpong, and I think his future might lie further up the pitch, which I think becomes an issue for, this week, the two clubs linked with him, Manchester United, and most recently Real Madrid. Like, really heavy links in the Spanish press with Frimpong.
I think Real Madrid could be an interesting one, because if they are going to persist with Camavinga at left back, then you're always going to have a kind of reserved back three. And that's enabled them to push, Modric higher up the field. Like, Modric has been getting way more touches in the penalty area in the final third, doing more creation, scoring more goals.
Yeah.
But it also means that your right flank can afford to be more attacking, especially as Rodrigo drifts quite a lot. I mean, he plays century a lot of the time, especially when Benzema's out, and Benzema's been out quite a bit, and we've got to presume that will continue going forward. If they add Bellingham to the midfield as well, then they've got a bunch of guys who are exceptionally rangy and can cover for a really attacking fullback. And I do think having at least one really attacking fullback on your books is a good weapon to have.
It would be a wild change-up, though, wouldn't it? It would be a wild change-up from Carvajal to him. Like, in structural system terms, like that back four that's just there, it's basically there to defend.
Because we spoke about it last week a lot about the Real Madrid right back position, and kind of...
Well, we had Dallo, didn't we?
Yeah, because who was the kind of nice mix of a guy that can go forward, but also someone that is very defensively sound and can kind of do both sides of it. Whereas, as you mentioned with Frimpong, very much sounds like it's one-sided.
It's just attacking. He's just an attacking
A few years ago, he would have been like Barcelona. We'd have said, who can sign a wing-back and play them as a full-back and get away with it? It'll be Barcelona.
Yeah.
But they don't have the money. They've actually got Balde as well, who they can kind of use in that role.
He's great.
So he does need, I think, to go to a team either that plays a back three or a team where they'll say, you're going to play fullback sometimes, but a lot of the time you're going to play on the wing.
Yeah.
So who are we looking at here? I mean, maybe Bayern Munich, because Bayern Munich have got Mazraoui's disappointed and Pavard wants to play centre-back and I think has a year left on his deal.
Mazraoui was really disappointed.
Yeah.
So I saw him coming out recently talking about how he's been. Yeah, he also kind of said it in a way that he wants to stay at Bayern Munich and prove himself, so on and so forth. But he is extremely disappointed about the minutes that he's not been having. Basically,
the issue is that, like, I think a lot of Premier League clubs now, even you look at a team like Man City, they're operating sometimes like 4 centre backs.
Yeah.
Like 3 centre-backs that can shift into a 3 and then move into the midfield. Like, Frimpong is not a guy who's going to invert and play in the midfield, come inside and get on the ball. He's a guy who wants to hug the touchline, give him the ball, and he will, especially in counter-attacking situations, be super dominant. He'll go past players for fun and be incredible in the final third. But he's not going to invert. He's not going to get on the ball. He's not going to dominate possession. You think of Man City, want to do that. Arsenal want to do that. Even Man United at times, Luke Shaw has been asked to invert, get inside, like Dallo, get inside. It's not worked particularly well, but clearly that is like that's the fashionable thing from fullbacks at the moment.
Is there anything obviously there's been a lot of links with Denzel Dumfries leaving Inter Milan. Is there a possibility of him going to Inter? The only thing is, well, Inter aren't going to necessarily have a lot of money to spend.
Big fee for them to spend on the
And also having DiMarco and Frimpong, like, obviously it's not a horrible problem to have, but that is a very attacking pair of fullbacks. And bearing in mind they're going to have to probably do major surgery on their centre-backs this summer because they've got a bunch of people running down their deals. And they've got to sell to make money because they're in a desperate financial situation.
It would have been a nice replacement.
I would like Brighton. Brighton, we've talked about this. Brighton are at this inflection point where they either decide, are we going to be the best of the rest or are we going to push on? And I think it's completely legit if they decide to be the best of the rest. But
this is such a wild call. To give Leverkusen under Xabi Alonso to Brighton, man.
Newcastle?
But what's going on with Brighton right now? You know, like Brighton's issues lately have been because they've been really thin at the right back zone. Like they've had to play Pascal Gross there, which was one of the issues against Everton. Yeah, but he isn't a proper fullback. And I do think that cost them a bit, certainly against Everton. You know, Caicedo can play there as well, actually.
He has played there, yeah.
But it would be interesting for them to have like basically what they had with Lamptey.
So punchy. It'd be so punchy.
It would. I know, because I do know Brighton have slight money issues. The fact that Tony Bloom has put a lot into the club.
Haven't they
one
got like the
point-
most manager debt in the
Yeah,
Prem or something?
But that will be fine as soon as they go, okay,
here's-
here's 80 million for McAllister, 90 million for
maybe this
Caicedo,
summer is what
80 million for
fixes it
Mitoma,
slightly.
90 million for Evan Ferguson. Like, they've got so many sellable assets at the club. It's a
Yeah.
joke.
What about Newcastle?
They're always going to have more.
What about Newcastle with the fact that he can play right back, but also they've been looking for a right. They're looking for a right winger as well.
No, it just doesn't fit with the structure of the team.
No.
The team is
I could see him on the wing.
the team is based as a right winger at Newcastle,
Team is
mate. The
based.
team is based.
It is based.
Off of being a defensively solid unit.
Yeah.
He is not.
Then he
going
plays
to
right wing.
displace Kieran
Then he plays
Trippier.
right wing. Do you think he could play right?
Yeah,
Right?
I think that's what Zach's suggesting, that he could play as a right winger.
And then if Trippier's ever injured or whatever, like
I mean,
he's
that
then the option.
it'd
to
be
play
wild.
right back.
It'd be wild. But why not just go and sign Moussa Diaby?
Okay, but at some point they're going to have
Same
to have an
club.
evolution,
Touche.
right? Because right now, I think they've been allowed to play in a way this season that if you're a consistent top 4 side, you're not allowed to play.
I do know what you mean. Yeah, I was saying this the other day about Sven Botman.
Yeah,
I
like
think he's a really good player, but they are going to have to some stage take the line 20 yards higher up the pitch, and players like Dan Burn, are going to be needed to be turned over. So
and the attack is going to need to
maybe.
pick apart defenses in a way that it hasn't needed to. Like early in the season, Almiron put up really great goal scoring numbers, but when you actually watched what was happening, so often he was able to run in behind a defense which was kind of playing far higher than they should have against a team of Newcastle's quality. Next year, teams aren't going to make that mistake if Newcastle are in the Champions League.
True.
But also, Frimpong be a really interesting weapon to have in the Champions League, where you do tend to play slightly cagier football, and you need somebody who can beat a couple of guys to create something out of nothing. Well, Frimpong is actually one of the rare people who can do that if he was in the Newcastle 11. Because right now, it's kind of Sam Maximan and maybe Isak. I don't know who else it is outside of that who you think of as a real one-on-one threat.
Yeah. Okay.
It's tough. It's not an easy one for him, and,
it's a rough-
maybe this
rough
is
one.
the season.
So you're going to
where
pick a
for some
location?
reason-
Honestly, I think probably another year at Leverkusen, guys.
Love you,
Sorry.
Leverkusen.
Boring.
Cop out.
Boring. What a shame. Idiotic choice.
Shame.
Yeah. Is that what you're saying?
I'll take that on the chin. It is quite a boring shout.
Well, we're not leaving Bayer Leverkusen for my next one because we're going further up the pitch and we're talking about Florian Wirtz.
Okay.
Now, Florian Wirtz, I think, in terms of Wonderkids, one of the guys that's been spoken about a lot
Endlessly.
over the past few years.
Yeah.
If you
Even
don't,
when he was injured. He was injured
he
for a
was.
year and everyone
He
kept
was.
talking about him.
Now, obviously, if you don't know too much about him, he's a guy at Bayer Leverkusen they brought from Cologne. He joined them when he was 7, and then
7.
Yes, and then obviously won
Recruit him in.
the under-17 domestic title
At 7.
in 2019. Obviously, as he's developed through the academy, he then moved to Bayer Leverkusen in January 2020, and he became their youngest ever
God, was it that
player.
recent?
That's that year in May at 17 years old and 16 days. So a couple of years later, in December 2021, he then became the youngest ever Bundesliga player to make 50 Bundesliga appearances. That has since been broken as well by
wrote that, didn't he?
Yusufa Moukoko at Borussia Dortmund.
Oh, right,
yeah.
Which is fair enough because he is another guy that could have been on this list actually as well.
Signed a contract, I think, recently.
Yeah, and he's at the perfect club for himself, if we're being honest. Now, he is also a player that hit double figures for goals in Germany's top flight before the age of 19, and he then made his Germany debut, also providing assists in World Cup qualifying.
He's a myth, man. He's a bit of a myth.
He has been a bit of a myth because one of the things I think when he did
Because he had a knee injury.
because when he started to get a lot of this attention, he then did his ACL, and as
Yeah.
Pat mentioned, was
That's
out
a massive issue, isn't it?
for a year. Now, it is a bit of an issue because obviously with ACLs, we know what players can sometimes be like afterwards. However, what Bayer Leverkusen were really good at is actually they didn't rush him back. They gave him all the time in the world and allowed him to kind of just spend his time in recovery and not feel like he needed to be there for Leverkusen ASAP. And especially after that season when Kai Havertz obviously went to Chelsea, there was a lot of room for him to have been playing. Now, anyway, yeah, he did his ACL, but he is back now for Bayer Leverkusen. He returned in 2023 this year, and he's kind of been seamlessly slipped back into this creative midfielder for them. His numbers are outrageous.
Yeah.
Like,
Xavi Alonso loves
He
him.
does.
The
Xavi Alonso
interview with
does
Xavi
love
Alonso
him.
talking about recently. He was like obsessed with him.
Yeah, and there is talks as well about possibly him staying for one more year. But obviously, if you come with enough money and you're a big enough club, I'm pretty sure he'd be willing to make the move. Again, when you look at some of his stats, like they are super impressive. In terms of dribbles and take-on numbers, he's completing 4 dribbles a game. I think he is 3rd in the Bundesliga for the most successful take-ons. He is super, super impressive.
Bellingham
again, another kind of flair player that likes to be obviously taking on players, but also skillful passes, no-look passes, all this kind of stuff. He is very much a 10. I think he's at his best when he's been playing as a 10. You mentioned Xabi Alonso. He came out and was like, you know what, his position is behind that striker.
Yeah, because I'm looking here and he's in the bottom 1% for shots.
Yes, his shots aren't impressive.
It's not amazing.
His shots aren't impressive.
But that's like Odegaard. Like when Odegaard had turned up at Arsenal, he was just not shooting enough. Then he added more shots in that first full season. Now he's added loads more shots and has suddenly like a 15 goal.
And he's got to be the biggest overperformer in terms of expected goals in the Premier League. Manuel Ugarte.
And look,
I think he scored 15 from 8.
It's hard.
Yeah, he does hit it hard. And look, he's 20 years old. Like, he can still be developed incredibly so. He is very much a 10. My only question as well when we're thinking about a team to go to is how many teams are playing with a 10 in that position. He did sign a contract extension until 2027, as well. So
Jesus, that must have a buyout.
It's going to be, I mean, from what I could see, there was no buyout, but maybe there is ridiculous. One. But it's going to cost a lot. And we know what Bayer Leverkusen are like. When you mentioned it with, obviously, Frimpong, we saw it with Kai Havertz. Like, when they sell their players, they get a good amount of money.
One thing I'll say about him as well, like, classically, it would have been written like a stick of Brighton rock through him. He was going to Bayern, but with Musiala there,
so Bayern.
I don't think they need him.
Bayern are interested in actually what
that role is blocked.
When I was looking at into Bayer an article about him, a Bayern Munich fan obviously got into the comments. Was like, I absolutely want this kid at Bayern. He was like, I want him pairing with Musiala.
What about Gnabry? Sane? Like,
maybe he feels like they're going to move on or so on and so forth. But there were Bayern fans that were very, very keen to.
Thomas Müller might move on. I did read this.
This is what they said. They were very much talking about being a Thomas Müller kind of replacement at Bayern Munich.
But even Thomas Müller hasn't been like that consistent since Musiala like exploded.
Yeah. But I don't necessarily, personally, I didn't think Bayern Munich was the place for him to go to. I did struggle kind of in terms of thinking of a certain place because you're looking for a team that play a 10. You don't want to, he can play out on the wing, but I don't think you want to stick him out there. He wants to be playing in that kind of, the middle. Like Odegaard at times would have been, if you guys didn't have him there, he'd have been maybe a good name, but you guys have maybe the best player in that position in the world right now. So it's tough to kind of suggest there. But look, he is super, super exciting. Again, only 20 years old. There's a lot of potential here for him. What club do we think could be after his services?
It's a shame Liverpool are so hot on McAllister, isn't it?
Yeah.
But do Liverpool even play the formation with him? Like, I think they'd have.
He can play wide though. He has played. He has played.
But then we've also seen because again, Liverpool were mentioned it, and again when we were thinking it, I was like, well, they've already got Carvalho. They've already got Harvey Elliott, and they're sticking these guys out on the wing. I think eventually, you want to try and make sure they're playing their right positions. I think there's been a lot of signings over the past few years where they've kind of been stuck in to try and fit in the formation. It doesn't work out, especially at the likes of Chelsea.
I think an interesting place for him would have been Real Madrid, because I've talked about this before, but I think Real Madrid's midfield is going to be amazing. It's getting really young, and the way they've kind of turned it over a bit this season. But the one profile they lack is this kind of 10.
Odegaard.
They can basically play any other kind of setup except one that requires a proper attacking midfielder. They simply don't have one. Now, obviously, this season they pushed Modric forward a little bit more, but I don't know. I mean,
with Bellingham though, Bellingham wants to operate in that sense.
But he's not a 10. He's just not a creator like Wirtz is.
No, he's not a creator, but he's
but this is
proven this season that he's better going forward than backwards now.
But this is the thing. I think they're going to play a 4-3-3. I'm just saying that if there were ever a time where they wanted to play a 4-2-3-1, they literally can't because they don't have someone who can play there. I think Liverpool would have been interesting. Wirtz is a really...
He's a difficult guy to place, isn't there?
Because there's not many clubs that are playing this formation. I mean, but he's so super creative. I also think he could adapt. This is a guy that when he's in his team is making them take 13 shots. When he's not, they're taking 8. And he's really, really creative.
And there are sides that could look at him kind of surprisingly. So, for instance, Manchester City, Mahrez, pretty inconsistent this season. When he's been good, he's been great, but he hasn't been as reliable because he's now at that age where you're not as reliable. De Bruyne, been phenomenal this season, but also at a point in his career where you'd expect him to play fewer minutes and decline a little bit, get less mobile. Bernardo Silva could leave. Foden, I don't know what the ultimate plan is, whether he's just going to become the right winger. But one way or another, it feels like there could be a hole in that team for somebody who is capable of playing wide or as an attacking midfielder. And City are going to have to think about what the next generation looks like. Because what Real Madrid have shown the big sides is the way to do this is not to go and get the guy who's kind of 27 and a name everyone knows, but to go and get the best young players in the world and blood them while your stars are still stars, so that by the time your stars age out, you've got another guy there ready to go. I think PSG could learn from that too. So I think PSG would also be an interesting one, because if Neymar goes, then they've got Mbappe, and that's a great thing to have. But Mbappe is also quite frequently injured.
Yeah.
Who are their superstars who take over when Mbappe's out?
Yeah, I like the idea.
And I think for the month, like there are only because there are like obviously fun moves that he could do, but to get his services, you're going to have to spend a lot of money to get him, which rules out a certain amount of other clubs that could have been potential suitors. And PSG obviously are a team that definitely have the finances to try and get his signature.
Yeah.
Again, maybe it does kind of come to who's the manager slightly after as to what formation they're playing and what system they're playing. I don't mind City either. I do wonder whether he could be like, I don't think he's physically strong enough to maybe kind of play in a central, like the Kevin De Bruyne role. But I'm happy.
What about Chelsea?
I was about
Chelsea.
Thank God they don't need another one. But
again,
they've
this
got
is a guy where
Havertz, Mount still
Kai
at the club.
Havertz, right?
Conor Gallagher's playing as a 10. Jeez, they don't need another one.
I honestly think they'd be
I
looking
don't
at
hear
the
it.
last by-ladies and that worked out.
Want to hear
I'm
it.
agreeing with you here,
Oh, good,
Joe.
yeah.
Like,
What about Newcastle? They're in talks potentially for James Maddison.
I don't know. That feels more Eddie Howe, doesn't it? Madison. Feels like if they don't get Madison, Eddie Howe would be like, who else grew up in the home counties who could come here?
All right, so we're saying potentially to PSG.
Yeah,
Florian.
yeah. If I'm being honest, I probably think he'll end up staying another year. I reckon.
I kind of agree.
But
Okay.
yeah, PSG.
My final name suggestion then, it's a bit of a dull one, guys, but it is Florian Balogun.
Folarin.
Folarin. But why do people call him Flo then?
I think that's just like the
A
way
nickname.
they
I know.
nickname
Every time it spins me out.
Why do people
I
call
always
like a
search-
Gary Gaz?
I
don't
always
know.
search Florian, and it's Folarin, isn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, Folarin Balogun, who of course has had a sensational season over in France, but pinch of salt maybe needs to be had, given that Lacazette is like joint top scorer out there and has scored 4 a game. But I do think Balogun has proven this summer that he's ready to start for a club playing European football. And that's not going to be Arsenal. It's just not.
No, I don't think that's...
Jesus is going to be the starting number 9. Eddie Nketiah is the backup, has signed his contract extension. Like, you've got Martinelli who can play there. Jesus, we've seen Trossard play as a false 9 at times for Brighton if hit the fan and 3 number 9s got injured. I don't see where Balogun fits in there. And I think he is a really sellable asset. I think there's going to be a lot of clubs interested in him. An 18-goal a season striker. Well, it's proven he can score 18 goals this season in France, playing for a really limited Rennes team. Tentative pronunciation.
Managed by
Reims.
Rennes. Yeah, whatever. Not like they're fine. Like Will Still's fine. They're doing an okay job. They've fallen off recently.
What's happened to your love for Will?
I
You used to love Will Still, and now he's crap.
No, I'm not saying he's crap, but they're just like a mid club, aren't they? Like
Once he
10th.
came out and he said, I didn't learn it on Football Manager, they've been crap since then.
No, they're 10th. Like they're fine, aren't
They're,
they?
yeah, I mean,
They're
like,
very much
they were
overperformed.
probably going to get relegated, and now they're a mid-table side. Like that
is
is a
impressive.
successful season.
Yeah, exactly. And Balogun scored, I think, 55% of the goals in domestic league play. Like he's on 18. I think they've scored 35, something like that. Like
okay.
He's very, very impressive for that side. And I think maybe he's been like miscategorized a little bit as like this poacher, just like a total poacher. But he's actually his
drops
all-round
deep, he's
play,
a good
drops
dribbler.
deep is really nice. Yeah, he can carry the ball well. I wouldn't say his back to goal game is brilliant. Like,
No.
certainly not Gabriel Jesus levels, and I think that's something that's added an awful lot to Arsenal this season. Jesus' ability to bring players like Odegaard, Saka, and Martinelli into play by dropping deeper. He's so physically strong. That's just not Balogun.
Yeah.
He's not going to be that guy right now, but he's only 21. You're not expecting him to be that guy. And Nketiah isn't really that guy. He's like developing that part of his game, but
But he at least makes up for it by being really aggressive.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, because that's what Jesus does, right? Jesus is just super aggressive.
Yeah.
Whether Balogun can do that is a bit of an open question. And it feels like if Arsenal were going to get another striker, add another striker to the squad, it would be, you know, the kind of like big target man as a different kind of weapon.
Yeah, I
like
kind
a
of
sort
agree.
of Calvert-Lewin profile, as opposed to another guy who's like 5'10" and a good finisher. He is a good goal scorer, but like, what does he add that you don't currently have? He's exactly kind of what people used to say Nketiah was.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? 'Cause he's a shot monster. Like, he's a really good finisher. But yeah, I kind of feel like his future lies away from Arsenal. And I think that works for Arsenal because, you know, you've always got to balance the books to some level.
Yeah,
and
sure.
he would be all profit, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
In the books, he would go down as all profit. I know, there's teams being linked with him to the tune of about £40 million, which is a big amount of money to chuck into your financial statement, given that if you think when you're signing players, as Chelsea have proved this season, you know, amortization takes a huge effect and you're kind of signing in increments of maybe 5 or 10 million, whereas your sale goes in as one lump sum, 40 million, so you can offset a lot of your signings with one big sale like that. I think he's a very sellable asset, and I think teams will be very interested in a 21-year-old who scored goals in Ligue 1, has got pedigree from Arsenal, is homegrown. I think there's going to be a lot of Premier League clubs interested in him.
Yeah, though I don't know if he will go somewhere in the Prem.
Really?
Who do you think is going to take that size gamble on him?
I think if Ivan Toney was to leave Brentford,
attempt?
I think he'd be very...
I think so too.
that'd be a good pick.
But they'd have to change style though, because as you said, he's not Toney.
Yeah, he's not Toney. But they change style so regularly, Brentford, anyway, don't they?
Yeah, but I don't know if anyone will buy Toney because of the gambling situation. I think they'll get to keep him because I'm not sure anybody's going to come in and pay the money when they know that he could face a ban next season.
Potentially, yeah.
The team's linked with him. I mean, obviously Milan are linked with him pretty heavily.
Yeah, Milan are very, very heavily linked with him.
Man. Come on, they just signed Scamacca.
I know. But he's going back to Italy, isn't he? He's going back to Italy, let's face it.
You know, Dortmund, who you mentioned before for Ferguson, now that's an interesting one. These are the teams that kind of do their shopping in Ligue 1, right?
Adeyemi up there, do they need...
Well, and Marlon's had a really good season as a goal scorer from wide.
Got coming back to Sabala. What about Inter? Obviously, it looks like Rom's coming back.
They just don't play the same way,
Martinez
do they?
could be...
They don't play the same way. He's not a Martinez, and he's certainly not a Dzeko.
But they're losing all of their strikers.
But it would be a massive departure in style from how Inzaghi plays. Like, he's not a Dzeko or a Lukaku, and he's certainly not a Lautaro Martinez.
He said AC were looking at him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think AC. I think they are the strongest links, and when you look at their striker core, you can understand why. I mean, they're still playing Giroud.
Yeah. Well, also another club very heavily linked with him is Wolves.
I mean, they could do with a striker
that could score a goal and take a shot.
Why the fuck would anyone want to play up front for Wolves?
Well, because they've got Lopetegui in charge. They've got some very decent midfielders. Mate, I don't think
their best one, like biggest asset is probably both of them might leave this summer. Like Nunes is linked with Liverpool. Neves, I think we've got to assume, is finally going. Moutinho is 1,000 years old. You play up front for them, then you get to play with like the husk of Pedro Neto. You get to play with Prudence, who's like a nice little player, but that's kind of it. They also got Kalajdzic last summer, who's presumably going to come back and expect to play some minutes at some stage.
How about Burnley?
Oh, get in the bin. He's just above that level, isn't he? He's above that level.
We've not found home for him yet, so I'm trying to. I'm scraping.
Can you imagine spending the year in Ligue 1 and then they're just like, do you want to move to Burnley next summer?
What about them?
They are a different Burnley side.
I'll retire, honestly.
What about if Jonathan David left Lille?
Sure. Ooh. Yeah, sure.
He seems to enjoy France, doesn't he? Yeah, he seems to enjoy France.
Jonathan David moves for 60, 70 million euros this summer, and they pay 30, 40 million euros to bring Balogun back to France. He's proven that he can score goals in Liga at a better level. He might score even more. I just
feel like they'll go and get a kid out of the Belgian league. Like, what's the Belgian league kid that we talked about? I feel like I talked. Yeah, Orban. Who's thank you, McCubbin, off camera. Who's like tearing up the Belgian league? That feels like what Lille will do. I don't know. I do think that Milan are going to need to go and get a striker. Milan are absolutely not in the market. That means they can go and compete for the kind of 50 to 100 million pound strikers. So they're going to have to go for one of these guys and hope for the best. And actually, when you look at Milan's recruitment strategy over the last few years, it has been who's maybe a little bit undervalued and is 21. And as much as Arsenal can demand a fee, and as much as Premier League interest might drive it up a little bit, everyone knows that Arsenal want to sell this guy. I do think you can get him for sub 40 mil. And for a 21-year-old who's probably going to end the season with 20 goals in a domestic league campaign for, as you say, crap side. I don't know. That kind of feels like a good fit for everyone.
And if AC finish in the Champions League places as well, then that's another thing, obviously, for him playing in the Champions League. But still.
Yeah, it's not a massive draw. But yeah, there we go. Okay, so those were 6 Wonderkids that we picked out from Europe's top 5 leagues that we think could get big moves this coming summer. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did enjoy this video, make sure you come down to Clubhouse 5. It's just off of Leicester Square, by the way, just by Chinatown. Of course, there is the big game. Manchester City versus Real Madrid. We fully expect Haaland to smoke Real Madrid, or at least I do. And
You've said this like twice now.
Yeah, and it's going to happen.
Well, don't include us in this.
At Clubhouse 5.
Don't like yoke us to your opinion.
We're going to be here as well. So come down and you can have a beer with us. Watch the football. It's well worth it. As I said before, we'll put the link in the description below if you want to book your table. Anything you want to
add? Check out Monday Vibes tomorrow.
Yeah, Monday Vibes tomorrow. We're not sure what we're discussing yet because, of course, we haven't seen the weekend's football. But that's the point of Monday Vibes. Are you on it this week?
No.
He's not.
Who's on it this week?
I don't work on Mondays.
Critchdog. Doogie is on it.
Doogie. I don't work on Mondays. He will be on occasional episodes. Don't worry. He's just lazy. He's lazy. There we go. Thanks very much for watching, everybody. We'll see you later. Goodbye.